ego is also one of those things where, because one of the first things I thought of is when you were so nice to call me and give me advice, and you were like, man, like we should sit down and we should change the way you train, because there's ways you can change your game up and it can have you roll longer. And the first thing that crossed in my mind was, I'm going to get my ass kicked for a little while trying to learn like a new game and a new strategy. And then the days that you go there, we talked about picking the right training partners. It's kind of like you go in thinking, I'm going to train lighter today. And the second somebody picks up the intensity, you're like, well, I'm picking it up too. And so there has to be a little bit of that discipline to really check your ego, to know you're taking some steps back, to take some steps forward. So in a sport that takes ego to walk in the door, it's a weird thing to have to then check. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you have to have an ego to do jiu-jitsu, but then how do you check your ego and get better at jiu-jitsu?
It's managing ego. Here's the thing, that when people say there's no ego in jiu-jitsu, it's complete, utter bullshit. It's just, there's no other way to say it. There is plenty of ego. It's just, ability to manage it. Here's the funny thing. And, a funny story is, on Fridays, I have a variety of UCAs. Most of them are black belts. And some of these guys significantly bigger than me. To me, 20 pounds is a rounding error. So, if the guy's 20, 30 pounds heavier than me, I don't consider that significant. But it's funny because, afterwards we train and, we start out, and you feel the intensity, you feel the vibe immediately. And the intensity starts out, okay, we're flowing. And, they just start to fall into things. And you could sort of see how the vibe or the feel of their bodies change. They're like, oh man, why is this happening to me so much? I'm not going hard enough. And then they go up. And I got to match it because otherwise it's not good for me. Potentially you can get hurt. And then again, it's the same thing that's happening. It's just a little bit more violent. And then we go all out and, suddenly instead of, usually I train an hour and minutes or so. I consider that a good hour to make up for, all the, maybe if there was a brief conversation in between or something. 10 minutes later, we're both huffing and puffing. We just had almost like a tournament, intensity. And the same thing happened, the exact same thing. And it's just like a lot more violent. And it's sort of like the guy's like, am I going too hard? I said, well, what do you think? Out of the two of us, who should be breathing heavier? He looks at me. He's like, you? I said, yeah. And who's breathing heavier? Me. Well, that should tell you that, okay, we're going too hard. And frankly, we cannot maintain this pace for an hour, 10 minutes. We have to take a break at 10 minutes. That's it. So clearly that training session went off the rails. But again, some of the seminars I teach a lot in Europe. And I remember I got a 3-stripe white belt at one point at one of the seminars, asked me to roll. And sometimes it's funny when you teach, there's always that one guy that wants to show you that whatever you're teaching doesn't work on them. And it's just like, okay, it's on. But one guy is like, and at that point, I just had a bad experience with one of my students, like a big blue belt, where the guy was literally, at this point, you should have known better because, my students have talked to him and he's been saying this like, and it's kind of like watching me train. And he's like, oh man, I want to roll with you. Not like, Fox, would it be okay? It's like, man, I want to roll with you. And one day I'm walking in, to open mat. And usually what I do is I warm up with one of the, smaller students, usually a female, and then I go with the bigger guys, and we can go hard and stuff. And I'm training, and this is like the 5th or 6th time. He's sitting there watching, and he's like, "Man, I want to train with you." I said, "Okay, you want to train?" Like at this point, I got my Irish up because I hope I don't offend anybody, but. And I was like, okay, you want to train right now? I literally armbarred him like a few seconds. I didn't quite, I didn't crank it more, but I just didn't I looked at him and said, how do you like training with me now? And long story short, he posted a thread, and he was a blue belt at the time, 230-pound guy, that, on the white belt forum, asking and lying about how, what happened. He's, sounded himself like he came skipping into the school, good morning, sunshine and everything. And my teacher wasn't doing anything. So I asked him politely if we can roll, and he armbarred me, and then he didn't let go right away. And I'm thinking, first of all, I was training. Second of all, you've been explained to, like, listen, you can't even hang with a purple belt. How is this it's sort of like a guy that's just, learning to ride a bike, and he wants to get into a Ferrari and floors it and plows it into a wall. And, same thing happened with this white belt. I want to feel your game. I said, listen, no, because one of two things is going to happen. I'm just going to let you work, and then you're going to say, oh, this guy wasn't that good. or I'm going to beat you up and then you're going to say this guy's an a-hole. So it's kind of hard to match, with the guys that are not experienced. It's kind of hard. They don't know any better, and it's an experience and winds up biting in the mid-butt. And again, there is ego in jiu-jitsu, absolutely. And you just try to manage it in a way that doesn't get you hurt and keeps getting you better. That's a difficult process.